The next insight, real quick, is all about how the model of learning has flipped, right? Back in the days, it was mostly about the process of learning, and then you apply that learning in real world as much as you possibly can. And in that journey of learning, the emphasis was more on learning, more on the theory, and less on the practical, right? Now, the new model of learning, the new way of learning has been research driven and proven now that the process of learning, if it is experiential in nature, which means you are learning by doing, which means almost flipping the model. You're applying, and through the application of that theory, you're actually learning by applying that particular algorithm, by applying that particular framework, by applying that particular, best practices. Are you now seeing results? uh, are you now seeing a certain kind of outcome? And if not, you're going to keep on going back in the loop. And so the notion now is that you're applying and then learning through the application as opposed to the other way around. And that's why, the learning process needs to be more 80% practical and kind of 20% theory, if you will. Right? It's kind of very important insight that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, if you look at the knowledge layers that every adult goes through, and this is very important from the word knowledge has to be kind of broken down. If you look at the hierarchy of knowledge layers, you start with awareness. That means you know something about that topic, about that area. And there are lots of learning tools available, especially in today's world where the access to information is democratized. You have e-learning, you have digital learning, you have YouTube, you have Coursera, Upgrad, all of these digital learning tools, webinars are great way today, including this one today, are a great way to build your specific awareness, which is the outermost layer, the initial most layer of what we call building knowledge. Then you have to go kind of deeper. The next layer of maturity is what we call literacy. So you're not only just kind of aware of it, but you have buzzwords now. You can have conversations. You now are conversant in that topic. Now, again, that's still not enough, right? And that's why I'm highlighting the third one, which is the skills. And skills will only be built if you apply, going back to our apply and learn concept, right? And so very important for us to understand that we have to be cognizant that when we say we know something, when we have the knowledge for something, is it really the awareness level for that topic, for that skill, for that area, or is it really all the way to a skill level? And I think what's important in the industry, in the way we hire, in the way most of us who are hiring managers who hire will hire for skills, not for awareness, not for literacy and superficial areas of knowledge, right? So I'm going to keep this in mind. The next layer, of course, after skill, which I strongly encourage all of you to also look at for any topic, is to get the expertise, which means you're not only are skilled at that particular competency, whether it's project management, whether it's business analysis, whether it's digital marketing and growth marketing, whether it is product management, right? Doesn't matter what that skill area is, what that competency area is. You need to be able to have a demonstrable nature of the skill. That's the only bar that's going to pass the hiring manager's test in today's world. And then the next level is the expert. That means you are now hiring other people in that function. You are now seen as a thought leader in the industry. You're the one who's setting up the right process, right? For that particular area. So those are the four dimensions. You go deeper and deeper, starting with awareness all the way to expertise, right? So just gonna keep this in mind that skill is the new bar. You need to have that bar. If you go to the next one, uh, and that's why learning by doing is such an important area and pedagogy element of how you learn, right? Prototyping things, building things. Like, for example, the one you see on the left is before you start your online pharmacy, you want to build a prototype and test it with first 50 customers. While you're trying to build a Tata Nano, which is a nice way of saying a car with the four wheels, you want to kind of put a prototype. And so participants in programs need to now have the curiosity to be able to learn by doing things, by hands-on experimenting things, and not just sitting in and listening to lectures. which was the old way of learning, right? If you look at the kind of classic classic classroom way of understanding and learning was, you sit through a lecture, you take some notes, you memorize them, you take a multiple choice questions as part of the assessment, part of the examination, and you get your credentials, right? I think gone are the days where that is effective at all. In fact, it's a waste of time. So that's kind of very important insight that I wanted to share. The outcome of this is that you are now seeing theory, best practices, knowledge everywhere. And that's what you see the grid on the left. The grid on the right is what you really are expected to have, is to connect the dots. And now this connection of dots is not easy. The connection of dots will center around two specific questions you have to ask, right? Can you apply whatever knowledge you've gained, whatever theory you've understood, whatever best practices you've consumed, can you now apply that in a context, in a specific problem, in a specific industry situation, from a scenario perspective? And if the answer is yes, you've now built skills, right? That's a very important question. I may know that there are 7 knives in the kitchen, but if I don't know which knife to use when I'm chopping or cutting or slicing a tomato versus slicing bread, this requires 2 different types of knives. And so knowing that there are 7 knives is knowledge, is theory, is good. You should know that. But knowing which one to use is super important, right? So the next important question, if you go to the next animation, is do you have a coach who can actually help you get that iterative feedback? And in many ways, building skills is like learning swimming. You want to have the theory is the most important ingredient, right? You have to know the best practices, how you learn 45 degrees angle, how you move your hands, especially when you're learning swimming, as an example. Second, you need a swimming pool to practice that swimming, right? This is kind of where learning by doing comes in. A project-based learning, a product labs-based learning, a labs-based learning. And the third is a coach who's personalized to you. He's watching you, as you implement, as you prototype, and constantly giving feedback, right? Because again, learning by doing is very difficult to do on your own when you don't have a coach who's an expert at that particular competency. So the second question is also equally important as it is to the first one. So 2 fundamental questions as you go from learning from listening and evolve from there to learning by doing, right? So very important thing that I want to kind of share with all of you as you think about building your skills about your career. If you go to the next one, and again, this is just an example of how, industry practitioners coaching each one of you personally, because each one of you have a slightly different interest. Even if you're in an early stage of your career, there are so many different career paths. How do you choose one? How do you get help in choosing that? Figuring out where your gaps are, right? Here's an example of Amrish, who's a vice president at Google. In fact, he's the global product leader for all Google Pay, based out of Bangalore. And so industry practitioners like him and many others are going to be helping. And you need to build that coach network, right? You need to kind of hang out with people who can help you find those gaps.